Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Certainly can.
Okay.
They were in with the agenda. The minutes were, I thought,
No, I believe I sent them as a separate email.
I'm looking. I was looking. I think it was like,
Okay. Hi, Megan.
Hi.
I think we're almost there. Molly will come on momentarily, I hope.
I'm here.
Hi, Molly.
Hi.
We can
Oh.
hear you. Oh, okay. Gonna have some exotic background today?
No, not today. Just me.
Oh, that's fine.
Oh, I found them. They were sent on May 11th.
Okay.
yeah, I thought they were later than. Yeah.
Brian, I feel like you should be in a fraternity house right now.
All I can
I
say
love
is
the hat and the scrap.
all I can say is you should be glad we're not all in the same room together because I just got back from a run.
Oh,
I am having a glass of wine. See?
I think that's appropriate.
And it's appropriate because we have accomplished a lot. Yep.
Yep.
We have lots to report.
I'm eating broccoli.
way to
Oh,
show up,
exciting.
Brian.
How healthy that is.
Yeah.
Well, I gave his dog a cookie this morning.
This is just straight vodka, though.
Yeah,
Essence of broccoli.
$4.99 up at New Hampshire liquor store. Unbelievable.
I believe it.
Okay, let's get started. Call the meeting to order. First item is the minutes of the April 30th meeting. Other than Brian, who apparently hasn't read them yet.
I move we approve the minutes.
Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Who was
Okay,
it that seconded?
Mark.
Oh, as usual,
I
okay.
think it's getting normal.
Just didn't hear
We
it,
don't
that's
want to
fine.
confuse you.
That's fine.
okay, the second item is very important. Abby is here and Megan is here, our two interns. And I thought it appropriate and discussed it with Brian, and we have decided that we would like to make them members of the steering committee, but because of their age, they have to be non-voting members.
Until they hit 18, right?
Right, yes.
We'll still be in business.
Yeah, you'll make it, kid. You'll make it.
Can be part of the final or maybe semi-final vote. Do I hear,
I'll make a motion to appoint them as non-voting members.
okay, a second, Mark?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That takes care of that. I wanted to very briefly go over a part of the communication that's not normal communication. We have really not reported back to our Board of Health, I'm sorry, Planning Board and Board of Selectmen who appointed us. And what I would like to do is on at least a quarterly basis and maybe more frequently as time goes on, put together a report that we will distribute to those two organizations and maybe further as is appropriate, that basically provides a summary of where we are and breaks it out with a high-level summary from the overall steering committee point of view, but then breaks out the activities of the individual task groups, and then equally important, identifies the various things that are planned for the next quarter, both in terms of the steering committee, the big picture, and the individual task groups. I have put up a template for that. You'll see it in status reports under the steering committee. It's very simple. It basically is what I just described. And then I will take the individual reports and consolidate them into a single large report. But that will mean that the head of the lead of every task group will have to put together a little write-up on what has happened and what is expected to happen in the next quarter. And I'll take that information, consolidate it, and then run it past the organization for comments. And then we'll issue that to planning and selectmen.
Couple of suggestions.
Yeah.
I think the first report should go to the planning board. And then, in fact, I think you should go to both planning board and selectmen. So their noses don't get out of joint.
That's my point.
And then do a general one to the public once they.
Yeah, no. I'm not sure we necessarily want to put out a general one to the public. I think we may want to put out a summary, but overwhelming people with a level of detail that our sponsoring organizations may want to hear. But we can decide that when we've heard back from planning and selectmen.
And what quarters are you thinking about? When are you?
Well, I think it's convenient that we start with July 1st, which kind of falls into the fiscal quarters. So in the next meeting, we will have a report that will be issued for the period starting July 1st. And at the end of that quarter, then we'll
Okay,
issue.
so not the quarter we're in now.
No.
Well, that's good.
There's a sigh of relief I'm hearing.
No, I think Brian had sort of suggested in his comment to me that, do you really want them to provide it for this meeting? The answer was, no, I wouldn't do that to you.
Oh yeah, he would. Don't kid yourself.
No, and we found it. I did this for the Bolton Common, and we did it monthly, which ate up, as you can imagine, a fair amount of my time. And it was very useful. Actually, it was most useful to donors and to the bank. The bank was very, very interested in exactly what was going on, and said candidly they'd never had this kind of reporting from any of their projects. So it made them happy, and that made me happy. Okay, so that's it.
What sort of detail are you looking for from each group?
Not a lot of detail. Basically, I'm thinking of half a dozen bullets, Ken. And then I've also included in the report key events or meetings that have occurred. So if something is being sponsored by public outreach and communication, and then that ought to be put in, or any of the other groups, as well as the steering committee identifies those. And I think the issue of the survey is something that I would consider to be a very significant event, as well as a lot of other things that we'll talk about a little bit later that Kia can introduce.
So basically what you want is a report by July 1st.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. And
Okay.
No, wait a
what
minute.
we've done up to
I thought
July-
you said, wait a minute, I thought you said for the quarter that starts July 1st.
Right. It's not going to be.
So
No,
you don't
it'll
want
be
to
3 months
report.
later.
Yeah, so it's July, so you want to report October 1st.
or
Absolutely.
September
Right.
30th, yeah.
September, yeah.
Okay,
Hopefully a little bit before that.
okay, that's right, but not, okay, that's
No,
fine.
no. If
That's what I thought I heard, but that's not what I heard Penny say.
No,
that's
Penny
not a
was just
monthly report.
asking if you want us to tell you what we're going to do from July 1st to September 30th.
Oh,
So the other aspect of this is, over a quarter, there's a lot more to talk about than there is over a month. And it's a pain in the neck to do it monthly. If you're moving very, very quickly, yeah, we may want to do that ultimately, but I certainly don't want to do it in the beginning.
So you don't want anything from us on July 1st with what we're going to do from July 1st to September 30th? Okay,
No, I do not.
okay.
But I think if you can get it to me 2 weeks ahead of the issue date, that would be very nice. And I will send out emails reminding everybody of that. The other thing I'd like to do along those lines is I'm working fairly closely with 3 of the task groups, and I'll try to set up Zoom meetings with the other task groups to get a sense of what's going on with them, particularly with respect to the plans moving forward. I mean, we know that at this point, all of the task groups have issued and had their plans approved. And now that little challenge of, now you have the plan, let's execute it. We need to understand how we're going to execute that. And I'd like to understand more about that as well. The other part of that is fairly soon, I need to take all of the individual task group activities and start developing some milestones in the Gantt chart, so we know as a steering committee how the individual task groups work is going to ultimately fit together, which is critical. And it's going to be somewhat challenging because of COVID. But, you know, frankly, I think we've done remarkably well with COVID. I think these Zoom meetings have been very productive, and people have
Yeah.
put in a great deal of time, and I think we've moved quite well. Brian, you want to comment? Or
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I was just going to say, I just took a look at the template that you created for the status update, and I think that template is actually a good planning tool for
Yep.
each task group to use when they try to plot out what they're doing the next 3 months. So I think it's great.
okay, good. Okay, so much for project management and administration. Okay, Ken, you're going to talk about the MVP. And Erica, can you let Ken share his screen?
Sure. I think you're good to go, Ken.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I put together a couple of slides just to keep interest up and to show that we can make the technology work. So this is the a quick overview of the municipal vulnerability preparedness work. And one of the things that Rebecca suggested that really isn't in here, but that anybody that wants to see more about it can find it, is that there's a web page on the state's website about the MVP program, what was involved in it when it got set up and things like that. And so she recommended highly looking at it. Bolton did that and got funding and ended up hiring a consultant, BSC, to work with a core group of people that were mostly people like Erica and Don and the 2 chiefs and people of that sort. And they had one of the last in-person meetings, I guess, that Bolton has had on March 10th, where they had a strategy session on what was going to be done in all of this. And ever since, there have been Zoom meetings. So there was an all-day workshop in April, and a number of us sat in on that along with the core group. And then there was a public listening session last week that turned out to be mostly the same people. I don't know if there was really anybody from the public that actually sat in on that. But in any case, it was a review by the consultant of what they had been doing and what they had found in talking to people. And there's a draft final report. It's on the town's website. And so I would encourage you to take a look at that. It has high and medium priority actions, and I'm going to mention a few of those that I think are particularly germane to our group in a little bit. This is an interesting picture, and we talked, I think that our last meeting, Bob had mentioned the finding from that workshop of the group called New England Landscape and some of the mapping capabilities and scenario analysis that they have. And one of the things that as a group we're going to try to find out is what the assumptions were for their various scenarios. I put this in though to show you an interesting map. The left-hand side of the map is, you can see there at the blue square, is approximately 2010 and what the land use was at that time. And the right-hand side to the beyond the blue circle in the middle is is their projection for 2060. And so you can see down in the bottom part, which is down in Hudson and below that, you can see that now it's green, and they suggested it's going to be red in 2060, and red is low density development, and green is either undeveloped forest. To me, the thing that's really interesting about this is all the green that's on Bolton because of all the conservation land that's in perpetuity that's not going to get developed. And that's kind of a cool thing that that can certainly be a continued part of the planning that we do. So these are things that, and one interesting side here, Bob, is on this New England landscape, I think the data that they've got is going to be really useful to a whole bunch of task groups. And so what we may want to do is to identify where some of these sorts of resources cross over, and then have some Zoom meetings that involve the different people involved in that, so that we can all move forward together and know who's going to need what information at what time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really worthwhile for everybody to go take a look at that website.
Yeah, and you can actually zoom in further than I did, but you can see kind of where my cursor is there. That's 117. So just give you your bearings. 495 is running this way. This is 117, and so this is the Lime Kiln Phillips Conservation Area over there. So anyway, no.
What is really fascinating,
but I wanted you to see that.
But Ken, I think what struck me fascinating is you can move that bar in the middle back and forth, and then you can change the date.
Right, and I didn't do that, but I did notice that you could do that. One of the other pieces of information that was important in the municipal vulnerability study were sort of climatic forecasts for the two drainage areas that we're part of. This is a semi-blurry picture of the Suasco, the table having to do with total precipitation in 2000, in 2050, and then nearer to the end of the century. And there's a similar set of tables and bullets and stuff for the national one. And as you know, the divide is basically where Ed lives in the Still River portion of the town is in the national one, and most of the rest of the town is in the Suasco one. So this is another resource available on the town's website, and that was used by the consultants in the report. Now they had recommended actions, and these recommended actions in part came out of the workshop, and there was actually some online voting that was done in that, where people said whether things were high priority or medium priority. And they had them in different categories, and I have several different slides here, and I won't dwell on any of them, but I've listed ones that they have many more bullets under each one that are shown here. But I put down some that I thought were particularly interesting or important for the work that we face. So as an example, there was a high priority suggestion to build on the lessons learned from the response to COVID-19 in improving and keeping going with the emergency response function in the town. And that's, I'm sure there are lessons learned, even though people have done very well in what they've done. There was discussion of Beavers with regard to road and drainage. And you can see that there are different assessments that they suggest, or making the public aware of things like the importance of farms and stuff. Now, interestingly, in both the farmland and open space area and a later one, the group recommended support for and passage of the Community Preservation Act by the town. So I think that's interesting and something we've all talked about before. They had things on the senior center, they had emergency shelters, and it's worth noting that Bolton doesn't have one. So the first priority item was to find out the status of Lancaster's shelter and see whether it's available to Bolton people if they need it. And so the kind of the obvious corollary of that is to go and study the feasibility and try to find a site for having our own emergency shelter if we need it. Then there was a lot of outreach stuff, of course. Then after the evacuation route one, which the suggestion there was to try to ensure that regardless of what's going on, that we maintain emergency access through our key roads that get to other towns and get to 495 and things of that sort. So those were all high priority activities. The next set were medium ones. And the one that I wanted to note in that, well, there were some things having to do with road salt and also with an assessment of private wells under the utility. But the other interesting thing that I wanted to mention was there was a whole separate thing on wells. And one of the things that was discussed that was a very intriguing thing, and I think maybe Ed deserves some credit for this part of the discussion, is that the suggestion was to look into the possibility of having a community well, probably down where the aquifer is in Bolton Flats, that isn't a public water supply, but it's there if it's needed in an emergency. So if the electricity were out for, let's say, another week, the way it was during one of the ice storms or something like that, then it would be a place that people, so of course, people with wells wouldn't be able to, unless they had a generator, wouldn't be able to use their water. But if you could then turn on with a generator a community well and somebody could go there and take away some 5-gallon jugs or whatever, it would be a way to help people. And that seemed to be very interesting. So anyway, that in a nutshell is what was in there. I can put these slides on our Dropbox site, so we'll have them, and would encourage everybody to get to look at the material. And I think it's going to be a lot of help to us going forward. If nothing else, the data. But I think there's a lot of stuff that will be good for the master plan that has come out of that project.
And I remember the discussion of the road salt at one point during the all-day meeting.
Yep.
And that Joe said it wasn't necessarily less road salt, but appropriately used road salt. And that using less and using more sand is just as detrimental, if not more detrimental to the environment. Did you remember that part of it?
Yeah, I recall that.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Yeah, come look at Great Brook, but at our house. We have islands of sand.
Yeah, well, that's Joe's theory, is that you use it appropriately and appropriate timing. And you not.
There is going to be a final report. The draft is already on the town site, and I'm not positive. Erica, do you know when it is? They said they were going to actually create the final.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I could take a look.
The draft on the website does not have the appendices in it, so I assume the final report will, and that has some of the data sources and some of the background material that they put together. But it's definitely soon, because the project is ending. In fact, I don't remember right off when it was, but I think they said that the report was going to be in July, because it's all coming to an end from what
I believe you're right, Ken, because the grant funding is for FY20. So I think you're right.
One interesting thing that has come up since those discussions, particularly as a result of what's going on in South Asia, is what about the relationship with two natural disasters that have diametrically opposite solutions? For instance, they're predicting a horrendous Atlantic hurricane season. What do you do with hurricane shelters and COVID-19?
Yeah, it's a real problem.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's apparently going to be looked at, because that really is diametrically opposite solutions. Thanks very much, Ken. It was great.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
Indeed.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Kia,
Hi.
Hi.
Okay.
you want to talk about the state of the world when it comes to public outreach and communication and all the neat things that have gone on?
Yeah, there's been a lot of action. First, Bob got his the first sort of newsworthy article on the Stowe Independent this week. I don't know how many of you subscribe, but it's sort of the launch explaining us. And it's the beginning of advertising for the survey. And then we've been working on documents to put up on our website, the town website that Erica's been posting. I got everyone's photo in, and the document I sent out earlier this week about bios, this is the last call for any bio changes because I'm about to give Erica that. And then we have social media progress. Abby or Megan, do you want to report on social media?
Everything's up. A post about the independent article, and we also have the survey posted on the Facebook.
Which is great. And there's a Twitter handle on it, right?
There's an Instagram one.
Instagram.
An Instagram. Sorry.
Yeah. So on Instagram, you can only have if you put a link in the caption, you can't press on it and you can't copy it. So we just posted the survey there and then put the link in the bio so that we just, they can just go to our profile and then press it and it will take them there.
Yeah.
And then we posted about it.
Yeah, that's great. Everyone, I know a lot of you have already joined the Facebook page. If everyone can go on and send a request to like it to every friend they have that's a Bolton resident, even if it duplicates. I mean, I know a lot of people have already done that, but we're trying to get more people to like it so that they will automatically receive anything that we post there. And I actually took the liberty, I put Kate Hogan on there too, just in case. She accepted. But, and if you're not on Facebook, don't worry about it. But for those of you who are, that's a good thing.
Abby, you want to talk about Instagram?
Yeah. So we're not getting as much action there, but that's kind of what we figured because more of the people who are active are on Facebook, and we're trying to get a younger demographic there, but it's just not sticking. So we're trying, but we have to come up with some other ways, I think, to try and reach out to them.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't give up. I think, all of this is preliminary.
Yeah.
And, once the survey engages more people,
Mm-hmm.
I think you might, see more results.
Yeah. And then we also got, I emailed Kristen DeJohn the Facebook, and she posted it to the Bolton Mass community group on Facebook too. So there's a ton of people coming from there as well.
Is there any progress on that other site, the Bolton Parent Mothers Group, or the?
I still don't know who runs that. I have to look and see if I can get them, because I figured that a lot of the people who are on the Mothers Group are probably on the community group too.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Kristen
I'm on
can help.
Miles'
I'm
work.
sure Kristen can help you with who.
Okay,
who they
I'll
would
email
be,
her
though.
again. Okay.
Then back to the Bob article thing. I think the next one we're going to do is Brian's going to write something on demographic changes, right?
Yep.
Okay. That's good. And
Yeah,
then
that'll be the beginning of a trend where we present information that has come up in our research in various task groups to start informing the public so that they are informed when they make decisions and they come to a public forum or provide comments and questions. They're, without being insulting, they will be more intelligent questions because they will have background.
it's also really good just to have as much exposure as possible so that more people know we're working on it and we're all approachable. I mean, a lot of what's going in the newspaper, once some of you others may have to write something, it's not going to be a big deal. It's just an excuse to get more face time and more people who are new to being involved. I mean, one of our primary goals is to get people involved, however, on whatever level they want to be involved in. It just makes us more credible and more open.
Erica, could you share your screen and walk through the master plan website very briefly?
Sure. It'll take me just 1 second. I have to pull it up.
While she's doing that, hey, oh, I'll let it go.
So here is the Master Plan Steering Committee webpage. So we have a brief description of what the committee is doing. We have our lovely hashtag at the top. Contact information for the board members. This is where our agendas get posted, our minutes, which I have to update. Then here we have links to various things. This is just a quick about the process in case someone wanted to read it or download it. This is the lovely, I don't know, Kia, if you've shared this with the entire, you must have at this point with the entire committee, but this is our lovely logo we're using on all of our documents.
Nice.
I think I did. Maybe I didn't.
This is a
Yeah, we
simple
both-
frequently asked questions page where there's links to Facebook and Instagram.
Excellent.
And then here, this is under construction, but this is what Kia is currently working on. So once I get this documentation from Kia, this will get updated. And then we have some more of the detailed documents that Bob's put together. This is the task group. We have the master plan from 2006, and then the overall process and organization of the committee is on here as well. And then today I just updated this. This is the survey.
Could you move that to the top?
I don't know. I can find out if I can.
Just it's temporary, right?
It is temporary, correct. This will probably, my guess is that I'll probably update this once we have the results, and that'll be like the results page maybe, or something like that. And this is essentially what was put in the news and announcement as well. If you're connected, if you e-subscribe to the website,
Yes.
you probably got this in your
Yeah,
email.
I got it.
And then there's a link here if you want to download it and print it. This is the survey here, as well as a link to SurveyMonkey. So, and again, hashtag who runs Bolton, you do, trying to incorporate some of those.
Oh, that's great. Downloading it and printing it. I've already had people coming back saying, I can't handle SurveyMonkey. Where could I get a hard copy? So now.
Yeah.
It'll be in the mail to them too.
Yeah.
Yep. So I have that here that it's going to be in the June 3rd issue of the
Right.
Bolton Independent. They can pick it up at, the Bolton Orchard
Are
Country
you going to
Cupboard.
print them off, or do you want me to print them off? What do you want to do about that?
I was going to print them off on Monday. I'll be in the office on Monday and I'll print them out.
You want to call me and I'll come down and get them and drop them off at Bolton Orchards and at Country Cupboard?
That'd be great if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
just call me and
That
I'll
would
come get them.
All right. Thank you. But that's basically it.
No, that's great.
Oh, and the other thing so Bob, just as an update, I've been talking to Jen Markey. We're going to get the suggestion box up and running next week. We can do a fillable form, so that'll be ready next week. And then we're also going to do little icons for Facebook and Instagram. So
Great.
Erica, how many were you going to print?
Oh, I thought you said 50, right?
Yeah, 25 plate each.
You know, you might ask the Independent if they have extras, because if they're inserting it into the paper, I'm sure whatever they did, they got a lot of extras. You want to say?
Yeah, that's a good idea too. I can email Cindy and find out. So.
Yeah.
Okay,
Looks
great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Good.
Great work.
And then Nikki has done a video of more publicity. Do you want to, Nikki, do you want to?
Want to play it?
Yeah. Has everyone seen it or?
No, let's,
No.
Go.
Is she still
Put
there?
about 40 hours into this.
Let's see. Anybody home?
Is she there?
Can you share her screen?
I think she said that she doesn't have audio. She says she's on VPN just to stream the meeting. Pretend she's not here.
Oh, okay.
Does somebody else have it?
Actually,
I probably could do it. I think
yeah,
she sent the
emailed it
link.
to all of us.
Yeah, I just have to find it.
But huge kudos to Nikki. I mean, she did an amazing job.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, let's see here. All right, can everyone see it?
There it
Yeah.
comes.
Yep.
All right, here we go.
It's got music too.
You need the sound.
yeah, we need sound.
You know what? Actually, Erica,
Oh, let me pause
if
it.
you if you
Yeah, you're
pause
going fast forward, I think.
if you pause it and then if you unshare your screen and then when you go to share it again, there should be an option where you say maximize for video. Like
Okay,
before you share it, it basically allows you to share videos better.
okay. Can you walk me through that one more time? What should
Yeah,
I do?
so when you go to share screen, if you
Yeah.
look to the like bottom left, there should be a button that says something like maximize for video.
Advanced sharing options? Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, maybe.
It's probably
mine
one of
says
those.
optimize screen share for video clip.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
that's what
talking
it is.
about. Do you see that, Erica?
Oh, yes, I do. Okay, my
Yep.
apologies. Okay, here we go. All right, I'll start it over.
One of the main reasons that I wanted to get involved in this whole master planning process is because I think it's a really cool opportunity to kind of translate our values as a community into a concrete plan for the next several years.
The master plan is a long-term document. It's really meant to guide the growth of the town for the next 10 to 15 years.
It's a vision for your community.
My name's Bob Romer. I'm retired, well, semi-retired engineer and project manager. Lived in Bolton off and on since 1976. Have traveled the world and seen wonderful places and lived in wonderful places and have come back to Bolton every time. So very, very happy with it. Plan to continue to retire here and see it for the things that I think most people here see it. The rural environment, the community, the school system, and the people.
I'm Penny Gherkin. I've lived in town for over 35 years. I am retired. I was in finance for 30 years. The basic reason I've been involved in things in town on numerous committees and boards is because when I was a child, my father came here, didn't live in the States, and came to the States. And when we were young, he said to us on a number of occasions, repeatedly, that we were incredibly lucky to be living in this country. And as we grew older, we had an obligation to give back to the community that you lived in and the people around you. That was your obligation because you were just incredibly lucky to be living here. And So, and he said, and the only thing you really should do is try to make it a little bit better than when you found it. And that's probably all in a nutshell why you haven't gotten rid of me in 35 years.
So hi, I'm Paul Tassini. Lived in Bolton since 2006, and my wife and I moved to Bolton from nearby Stowe. I originally grew up in Western Mass, and Bolton is very similar to where I grew up. It's a farming community, and that's one of the aspects we really liked about the town. We moved into the Wilder Mansion up on Wilder Road, which is the highest point between Mount Wachusett and Boston, which is a fun fact. So we have a great view, and we really like the character of the town. I'm into conservation and gardening. Been on a number of different organizations and helped out with a number of different charities in town over the years. I've been a soccer coach for probably 15 years of my kids' 3 children growing up in town. It's a great place to raise a family. We really enjoy living in the town and all it has to offer. I've been on a committee for the First Parish of Bolton, and again, as I said, helped out with various charities. I was asked to be on the Master Planning Committee and agreed to share some of my talent and experience. And my background is in engineering, and I own a business over in Hudson.
My name's Abby Ayotte. I'm a junior at Neshoba, and I joined the Master Plan because I've lived here my whole life, so 17 years. And I really just want to give back to the community. And I'm also really interested in marketing and communication for a career, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity.
Thank you. I'm Ken Troop. I've lived on Meadow Road since 1975, and I got involved. Well, I'm a former selectman. I was a selectman for a number of years, but I actually got my start in the conservation area in 1977, and have sort of been involved in planning ever since. Bob Romer and I were the chief architects of the open space plan in 1980. And then after I became a selectman, one of the first things I tried to do was to get long-range planning going. And I was involved with the long-range plan, with the master plan in 2006. And then after I left being a selectman, was involved in several different activities, either around zoning or acquisition of properties, and also on the advisory committee, and then ended up volunteering for this group. It's been a part of my life then and always will be, just as Bob said. I tend to stay here and really like the place, and hope to continue to contribute to the town.
My name is Molly Myers. I was born and raised in Bolton. I spent about 10 years living in other states such as California, North Carolina. I joined this committee because I felt it was important to give back to the community. My family has a long history of volunteering in Bolton, so I thought I'd carry the torch even further. Professionally, I'm a project manager like Bob, but I work in pharmaceuticals, and I'm very excited to be here. And another reason why I joined is the town I used to live in North Carolina was rampant growth without very much thought and planning into it, and it was not very safe to stay.
Chris Rogers, another native son. Sister Molly is brother to Molly. 20-year member of Board of Health, former builder developer, now construction project manager, and always looking to help where I can to step in the right direction, or what I feel is the right direction.
I'm Megan Urban. I'm also a junior at Neshoba Regional High School. I've lived in Bolton for 9 years, and I wanted to become involved in this committee because I thought it had great ideas and was a great idea or way to connect the community.
Hi, this is Ed Stirling. I've been in Bolton for about 32 years. I lived in Canada, Germany, grew up in Vermont, and was looking for a Northeast town that reminded me of my Vermont upbringing, and Bolton was a great choice. So we've been here since 1987, I quickly got involved in the Conservation Commission, then moved on to become a selectman for one term. I was happy to be instrumental in helping the Sawyer School and the high school renovation back in the late 90s. I then joined the Long Range Planning Committee that started in 2000, which led to a new police station effort that at the time didn't work. And then I joined Parks and Recreation in the early 2000s. I was also a founding member of Bolton Access Television back in 2005, and I provide the computer support for them today. I am quite interested in the outdoors. I have been in the Boy Scouts for over 20 years and had 2 sons that were Eagle Scouts. And I certainly enjoy hiking and have been supportive of the open space purchases that we have done here in Bolton. I live on the west side of town and have a wonderful view of Bolton Flats and Mount Wachusett. So I'm happy to be on the Master Plan Committee to deal with open space and parks in the town of Bolton. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mary Shumo. Long before I moved to Bolton, I would come up here often to visit because I was drawn to its rural charm and its historical landscapes. I think I bring to this committee my experiences as a member of the Public Ways Safety Committee and the Bolton Historical Society and Friends of Bolton Seniors. Thank you.
Hi, Mark Sprague. Let's say I've been in town since I think around 92. So I'm a lot more recent than most of these guys. I've been on a variety of boards in town. I've been on the Board of Health, Conservation, Planning. I've been a selectman. Right now I'm on planning, and so part of all this falls naturally under the interest in town planning, and it's also one of the requirements was that the planning board have a representative. So I stepped up to take that responsibility. So to help move the town forward here.
I'm Kia Boynton Oceanbine. I have lived in Bolton Center for 25 years. And when I moved in, because I was able to say I lived in the Siemens old house, it seemed I was quickly assimilated into the active volunteer scene here. Unlike other towns I've lived in, participation was easy and spirited and needed. Professionally, I'm a graphic designer and I work mostly on history textbooks, college publications, and I do layout for the Harvard Press newspaper once a week. My husband, Roland, and I were active in the library building and renovation. We were also active in the preliminary planning for the Town Common project. I was part of the group that set up Public Ways Safety Committee in 2003, and I served as chair for the first few years. I love history, and I'm on the board of the Bolton Historical Society, and I run the Wreath Festival each year. And because we have a dog, we have explored all corners of Bolton, walking trails, and looking for the exact sites of the Oliver Everett photographs. I'm on the steering committee because I'm interested in our history and our short and long-term future.
My name is Brian Boyle. I live here in Bolton with my husband, Matt, and our 2-year-old son, Christopher, and our dog, Nutmeg. Professionally, I work as an attorney and in the insurance field. One of the main reasons that I wanted to get involved in this whole master planning process is because I think it's a really cool opportunity to kind of translate our values as a community into a concrete plan for the next several years. And selfishly, it's an opportunity to work with a lot of really interesting and talented people, which is something I really enjoy. So it's been fun so far.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
That was very good.
Yay, yay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's excellent.
You're all stars.
Great work, Nikki.
Okay.
I sent her 2 corrections. I requested she take out the First Parish Church, partly because it was the old building, it's confusing, and also we don't show the other churches, don't want anyone's nose out of joint. And so I gave her a replacement photo that actually shows more orchards, because we didn't have any sort of full-on agricultural orchard shot. So I was
That's a good idea.
I was going to suggest we should get a picture of Sawyer School in there somewhere, but yeah, I don't know. We haven't found one, and it's not that important, so she should get it up right away.
Yeah. Yep. Sooner the better. Okay. Next agenda item, Brian. HPPC.
Okay, I'm gonna try to share my screen. Hold on. All right, can you see that?
Yep.
Yep.
And we've also got Mark O'Hagan joining us for this portion of the meeting too. So I believe everybody here received a PDF of the draft of the housing production plan.
Yep.
So what I wanted to do was maybe just take 5 minutes to run through these slides, and then spend most of the time just fielding comments and questions. So this is just to orient folks to why we have or are revising a housing production plan. And it arises out of some of the requirements of Chapter 40B, the Comprehensive Permit Statute. So everybody pretty much understands that Chapter 40B has this overarching goal of increasing low and moderate income housing, partially by reducing regulatory barriers. And so what that means is, developers can get a comprehensive permit that essentially allows them to hop over some of the requirements that they might otherwise have from planning or conservation and whatnot. But a local board of appeals is empowered to deny a comprehensive permit under certain circumstances. So I've listed those 3 bullets, and the last one, which says the Department of Housing and Community Development has certified the town's compliance with the housing production plan goals by increasing their SHI, which is their subsidized housing inventory, by either 0.5 percentage point or a full percentage point. So basically what that means is if a town submits a housing production plan and it gets certified by a DHCD, and then if in a given year we show that we've actually increased our subsidized housing inventory by 0.5%, then we get a year of safe harbor where our zoning board of appeals could deny a comprehensive permit to somebody. And if it's a full percentage point, then we get 2 years of safe harbor. So this slide shows where we stand as of May 2019. I know it's a little hard to see. I just wanted to include the whole shot, but basically we have a total housing units of 1,729. That's based on Census 2010 data. 69 of those units are included in our subsidized housing inventory. So we're at 3.99%. And the statutory minimum that they're trying to get communities to get to is 10%. So we are quite a ways away from that 10%. And that would provide basically permanent safe harbor, as I understand it. So the housing production plan is a plan that the municipality develops and adopts, then it submits it to approval for DHCD, and it has to set forth a plan for increasing their SHI eligible housing. And the time horizon for these plans is generally 5 years. And there's, actually, let me go back for a second. So there's, right there is the Code of Mass Regulations that sets forth what a housing production plan requires. Basically 3 elements. There's a comprehensive housing needs assessment, then a statement of affordable housing goals, and then the implementation strategies. So the Housing Production Plan Committee has spent the last year pulling together the data and drafting the report that you saw. And then after we meet with you, our next steps will be to submit to the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission and the Board of Selectmen. And then after we get comments and approval from them, then the town administrator would submit to DHCD. One sort of point that we wanted to make is that there's a difference between sort of the definition, the legal definition of affordable, which I'm calling affordable with a capital A, versus the everyday definition of affordable. So legally, affordable means eligible to be included on the subsidized housing inventory, where generally the purchasers of those homes have to have a maximum income less than 80% of area median income, which is something that's defined by a federal agency on a regional basis. More generally, when people use the term affordable, I think they have in mind something like, we have some senior citizens that are on fixed incomes and they'd love to be able to stay in town, but they can't afford to. So those folks may not fit into the category of capital A affordable, but we are still trying to address some of those concerns in our housing production plan. This shows you what the FY 2020 area median income data is. So this applies to Bolton because we're considered part of the Eastern Worcester County HUD metro area. So for a family of 4, the median income at the 80% level is $78,500. All right, so now we're going to get into the comprehensive needs assessment. In our report, you saw we had some demographic, economic, housing, and affordability information. I'm just going to touch on a few of the highlights. We think the major demographic trend, and I think this group is kind of already aware of this, is the projection of basically what percentage of our population is going to be in that age 65 plus category. And so when you look back at 2010, right, we had, a third of our population quite young. It's essentially going to be totally even between the youngest and the older folks. And we need to prepare for that change in demographics. And that's also something that's true on a pretty regional basis as well. An economic highlight probably comes as no surprise to most people, but that Bolton's median income is quite high. But if you look here, for householders age 65 or more, the median income is significantly lower what the overall median income is. And what that leads us to conclude is that there is an affordability problem for people in that age group, a housing affordability problem, I should say. This table shows just a change in the past 2 decades of housing prices. And what you'll see is like back in 2000, there was, about half of the housing stock was valued at $300,000 or less. Now it's like 10%. Now it's like 10% that's valued at that amount. And then the vast majority is $300,000 or more. This shows a bit about housing costs as a percentage of household income. So one rule of thumb is that somebody's considered to have housing affordability challenges if they're spending 30% or more of their household income on housing. So in Bolton, across all age groups or income categories, about a quarter of people fall into that category. So a quarter of residents in Bolton are burdened by their housing costs. But if you drill down to the households within Bolton that are making $75,000 or less, 73% of them are experiencing housing cost burdens. So quick overview of our affordable housing goals. These are big picture goals. We want to establish a realistic plan to achieve and maintain SHI of at least 10%. And so as you saw earlier, we're at roughly 4%. and that's 69 units that we have. In order to get to 10%, we need to add approximately 105 units. We want to increase the diversity of housing types, potentially reforms local zoning to better direct development and encourage affordable housing, while still ensuring that new housing is in harmony with the character of the town, and then also promote education and outreach when it comes to affordable housing. And we had a few specific implementation strategies. I guess the one that I want to highlight, and Mark O'Hagan should certainly chime in here as well, but the consensus of the Housing Production Plan Committee was that pursuing a fairly sizable, friendly 40B rental might be Bolton's best chance at getting to that 10% subsidized housing inventory in a way that is also consistent with the character of the town. And if it's done right, could also be a development that services the needs of senior citizens. So we'd love to hear your reaction to that, but just quickly to zoom out for a second, this is where a lot of existing and proposed affordable housing units are throughout town right now. And then we kind of wanted to be a little provocative with our last slide, which is to say, like, would it be possible to have a large-ish rental development in town? So that is the end of the overview.
Yeah, one thing just to chime in on what Brian was saying, the numbers that we have too, those are based on the 2010 census. So, they're going to be doing the 2020 census. We've probably added 200 to 250 units. So, the 105 is probably more 125, 128 or whatever by the time the final numbers come in. Over the past 10 years or so, I think the thought has been, let's do small projects. Let's kind of scatter them around the town. From a practical sense, it's really difficult or virtually impossible to get to the 10% on that basis. As I've said in the meetings, I kind of make my living on those, on the smaller projects and work with a lot of towns to do it. But, with the objective of trying to get to the 10%, to get the town in the position that they can accept projects that they like and deny projects that they don't like. The most efficient way, I think, is to try to find a rental that's appropriate and well done, and with a well organized management group and process. And the other significant thing that we talked about is obviously the location of it is important. Somewhere on 117, preferably closer to the intersection where you've got traffic controls and it's closer to services, and they're not going to have a whole bunch of cars coming through existing neighborhoods of residential homes is the other key consideration of it. So that's kind of the basis of trying to get to the 10%, and then proceed with projects that the community is supportive of, instead of perhaps projects that they may not be super supportive of, but feel that they don't have much choice.
And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say there were a rental development with 200 units, because if 25% of them, so 50 units, were designated legally affordable, actually all 200 of those units would count toward the SHI.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the state's kind of perk for accepting rental is they would all count. You do a 60 unit townhome community, you get 15 affordable units. You do a 60 unit rental would be 60 units, or a 200 unit rental community would get you all 200 units. That would essentially, we'd be fine through 2020, 2030. Who knows, maybe 2040 is, whether or not regulations change. So it certainly would get us to the threshold, or get the community to the threshold that they, can go forward with projects that they deem to be reasonable and appropriate.
So is that where the one at Boxborough, at the interchange at Boxborough, that development behind the Exxon station, is that?
That's the
That-
picture
if I
that,
can-
that Brian
that's a-
gives on the front. Yeah.
That's 100% rental, but some of them are sort of high-end rental, but it counts.
Yeah, the rentals, I mean, typically these days that is an affordable community. So I think there's 250 or 255 units or so. So you've got 60 to 65 affordable units that are renting at, probably 15 to 1800 a month. And then you've got the balance that are renting anywhere from probably 2,000 to 3,000 a month as conventional market rate apartments. So but they're all essentially the same. They're all the same product within the community. But the 25% have the rent restrictions on it in compliance with the state guidelines. That make sense?
So
Yeah.
only 25% of them count.
Nope.
all of them.
100%
of the property counts.
But you have to have
although only
25%.
25% have the reduced
Right.
quote, affordable rents.
Right. So that is a really good way to meet our goal.
We thought so.
Yeah, and that is it's a nice property, and there's lots of other examples. If you go up and down 495, like anything else, some communities are better than others, but that's a nice community with amenities for residents. They've got a mix of sizes from 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, some garaging, some not. So and what we liked about it, and concept wise, is I know Brian had talked about it, we do have an aging population here. So getting units, whether they have elevators or we have a sizable number of first floor units that are handicap accessible or adaptable. They work for young people, they work for old people, people that may have issues dealing with walkability. So we feel it hits a lot of the key things that we need in town, and could be localized with one project without having them scattered all over the town. If we can find one of scale that makes sense.
Great. Sounds like a very good recommendation.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, semi-administrative concern I have. Does everybody have access to Dropbox, or are they being refused?
I have access to it.
I'm okay.
Okay. Because there has been some concern that if people are using the free Dropbox, when they start looking into our Dropbox, the size of it is so huge that they can no longer use it. But if that's not the case, I'm very pleased.
I've heard of that happening in the past on other Dropboxes.
Yeah, that's why I have a professional account, because it happened to me many times. But that's great to hear.
Would have told you, Robert, if they hadn't gotten in.
I would suspect that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of seems obvious to me.
Yeah.
Are we all set with Mark? Did anybody have any other questions for Mark O'Hagan?
Other than thank him for the huge amount of work.
Yeah, exactly.
Both you and Erica and Mark. I mean, you're the three who pulled this whole thing together.
Brian gets the Pulitzer Prize. He did most of the writing. So.
It's excellent.
Well, I know, but you two did a huge part of it.
So,
thank you, Mark.
Well, thanks very much. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah,
Brian. Okay, anything else? If not, do I hear a motion?
Oh, actually, sorry. Can I just say one thing? This technically wasn't on the agenda, so we don't have to discuss it. But I think that we should be, now that we're making more efforts at public outreach and everything, one of the, I think, lessons that I came away from in the housing production plan process was just how in many ways Bolton is not diverse. But we're not totally not diverse. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to try to make sure diversity of voices are represented in this group's work. So I don't have any specific proposals, but I think we should all be just thinking about making sure we're really reaching into every corner of the town when we're getting input on these decisions.
Yes. I
Yeah,
agree.
And that's something I think we ought to do on a fairly formal basis. Start looking at what the full range of stakeholders are in the resident population of Bolton and make sure that we are addressing those. And that was certainly, as Ken knows, one of the things that we did for our charrettes, our public forums, working with the Common, that we went way out of our way to identify absolutely every stakeholder group in Bolton and made sure that we coordinated with them and we had a representative from each one. And not only a representative, but made sure that when we were messaging, it was something that they understood and they agreed was an appropriate way of sending out the message and soliciting input from those people. So you're spot on, Brian.
Did you share, Bob, that list that you had from the Common of all your stakeholders with everybody, or is that in Dropbox?
No, but I can.
It goes on forever, mind you, everybody.
Well, yeah, it goes on forever, but we ended up grouping it. And then eventually we reduced it to 25 stakeholder groups and basically asked them for a representative, each one of those groups. And so we got a pretty good cross section. The one area where I think we could have done better is younger people, although we did have 3 or 4 younger people.
Oh, we had a good start with our younger people in this.
Yes, thank you, ladies.
Thank you,
Can I mention one other thing? Next Thursday, I believe it is the bi-monthly meeting of Magic. It's going to be a Zoom meeting. If anybody hasn't gotten the agenda or anything, I could send it to them. But one of the things they're going to be talking about is their budget for the coming year, and they have $35,000. And part of what they're going to be spending it on is the healthy living project that they were working on last year that involves a lot of senior transportation in the region.
You say 35,000, Ken?
35,000 is the amount that they have total, and the majority of that is going to be spent on that project, and then they have another one on related to transportation of seniors that would get some money. And so, but I just want to let people know that that's going on. One of the things they do and that they did, because I sat in on their May meeting, and one of the things that they did was to go down the list of towns that were there and had a representative from each town talk about what was going on. And it was kind of interesting because all these people are facing town meetings. And so they were talking about actually 2 towns are having their town meetings outdoors, which is really interesting. Lincoln and Maynard are both having outdoor ones. And some people are waiting until September and some people are doing it at the same time as ours. But you get a good sense of how each of the towns is operating in the current situation. And so it's kind of a fun meeting to participate in. It's only an hour and a half, so you don't have to drive any place. So it's pretty easy to listen to.
Can you send a link to that?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, I just wanted to mention the 2 people who put in a huge huge amount of work on the outreach, and that's Molly and Kia and Nikki to produce they've got going out. And they put in hours and hours and hours, and I just wanted to thank them.
Okay.
Thank you, Penny.
And now make a motion to adjourn.
Yes, thank you, Penny. And Mark?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hey.
Thanks.
Thank
Hey,
you.
everyone.
Good night.